America has a long and dark history when it comes to school shootings. They are a bit of a taboo subject due to the fact that they are somewhat omnipresent. It's not a phase of American culture that seems to have gone out of fashion, but today, I don't want to talk about disenfranchised teenagers acting out infantile fantasies of revenge. Today I'm going to talk to you about America's first school shooting, and it's probably a lot older than you imagine. So let's go back to Pontiac's War and talk about a very dark tale indeed. Disclaimer, this is another one of those technically videos like how Scotland technically has the world's first assassination by firearm, but that's only true if certain criteria is followed. Just so happens in this instance it's basically any time a gun was discharged inside of a school, no other criteria required. So yeah, again, possibly not the first time in actual history this has happened, just the oldest record that I'm aware of. But as with everything in history, it's liable to change with the more stuff we dig out the ground. Wait, what? No, for fuck's sake, don't say that. So the year is 1763 and Pontiac's War is just commencing. If you want to think of Pontiac's War in more European terms, think of it like any loose confederation of similar tribal people forming together under one banner to compete against something larger and more technologically superior. Like how the Picts came together as one to resist the Roman invasion of Scotland, because that's what it was. A group of tribal Indians under the leadership of Pontiac, an Ottawa war chief, who all probably had reasons to hate each other for the rest of the year, banded together around the Great Lakes area to resist British rule. Warfare was particularly brutal during the conflict, and neither civilians nor children were safe. It was basically utter chaos for the better part of 3 years. And in part because of the uprising Pontiac had caused, the British would issue the Royal Proclamation of 1763, which forbade westward expansion of the Appalachian Mountains. Apparently the Royal Proclamation wasn't a direct response to Pontiac's War, but I bet you it was a factor. Anyway, the Royal Proclamation can also be seen as one of the underlying contributing factors towards the American Civil War. Because, well, the colonists wanted to keep heading west and find some good farmland, but Britain said no, so inevitably, war. But I'm not here to talk about Pontiac's War, at least not today. What I am here to talk to you about is one of the more brutal incidents that occurred during this conflict, highlighting how treacherous and violent this era in America's history was. On July 25th, 1764, 4 Lenape Warriors came across a pregnant woman on a road somewhere near present-day Greencastle, Pennsylvania. This woman was beaten to death, scalped, and her unborn baby was cut from her womb. And to think, this technically is the lighter part of this episode. As the very next day, on July 26, they decided the previous day wasn't enough, and so they arrived at Enoch Brown's schoolhouse for the settlers' children. Schoolmaster Brown and a number of young children were inside. Upon entering, Brown begged for the lives of the children to be spared, but nonetheless he was shot and scalped. The warriors then proceeded to tomahawk and scalp the students. Enoch Brown and 9 children would die that day. 2 children did survive being scalped, but unfortunately another 4 were taken as hostage. Pretty rough, right? All I can say is that in John McCulloch's captivity narrative, his diary or recounting of his time spent in captivity, he states, "I saw the Indians when they returned home with the scalps. Some of the old Indians were very much displeased with them for killing so many children, especially, oh Jesus Christ, forgive me First Nations, Neepawees or Nightwalker," I'll definitely be sticking with Nightwalker, an elderly war chief and half-king who ascribed it to cowardice, which was the greatest affront he could have offered them. Incidents such as this encouraged the Pennsylvania General Assembly to reintroduce the scalp bounty tax previously used during the French and Indian War. Settlers could collect $134 for a male Indian above the age of 10 and $50 for a female. So did this event have any meaningful change? Well, no, not really, but isn't that the sad reality of most conflicts? We all know about the victories and the conquerors, but how often do we hear about the stories of daily tragedies that occur during these conflicts? Because that's the reality of war. It's bloody, it's brutal, and innocent people will be killed. And that's probably it for today, because to say any more would really require me to talk more at length about not only Pontiac's War, but the entire era of early settlement as a whole. But what I do want to end with, though, is that clearly atrocities occurred on both sides, with everybody scalping everybody. It's hard to say who is better than the other. But I think it shows that these actions were the actions of individuals themselves, and not necessarily the views of that society as a whole. Nightwalker clearly didn't approve, and this is what we need to remember. What is right and what is wrong, especially in times of war.